I expect the precious metals market to bottom very soon. Silver might have bottomed already. Silver is leading. Silver has been leading in the rally in 2022. So silver seems to bottom first, and gold will follow. So I think this is the time when you have some real bargains in the market, especially since the volumes are so low and markets are depressed and people are depressed. So we're not that negative. Actually, the next few months might be quite surprisingly good for the mining markets.
Popular Dutch investor and former stock market commentator Willem Middelkoop is anticipating significant and sustained price rallies in the markets as soon as the Federal Reserve puts an end to its rate hikes. Willem, the founder and chief investment officer at Commodity Investment Fund, expects that the next few months will be more favorable for precious metals and other commodities, assets that are popular hedges against inflation. Unlike some other analysts and investors calling for a stock market crash, Willem believes the broader stock markets as well as the popular indexes will continue to benefit from the present economic environment, but he is particularly bullish on precious metals, especially metals like lithium, platinum, uranium, copper, and nickel. Willem, who has been an investor in junior mining companies for the past 2 decades, is also predicting a general price explosion in mining stocks. This is why he is predicting a 50 to 100% increase in the GDX within the next 12 to 18 months. Willem has been making bold bets and predictions like this since before the global financial crisis. As a private investor, he anticipated the crash of the American housing market and sold all of his properties well before the crash to invest in gold and silver. 5 years before the crash, he started investing in junior miners and exploration companies and helped many investors transition to hard assets during the 2008 crisis. Willem recently appeared for an interview where he discussed his general outlook for the United States economy and markets. According to the popular investor, the commodities and precious metals markets might not even need a trigger before we start seeing significant price rallies to the upside. As soon as the sellers get exhausted, sentiments will begin to improve, which will be swiftly translated into upside rallies for metals like gold, silver, copper, and platinum. We will now bring you clips from Willem's interview with SOAR Financially. Please watch, share, and like this video. Also, ensure you subscribe to the channel, turn on post notifications, and don't forget to drop your comments and observations in the comment section below. Thanks, and enjoy.
Well, main conclusion is that we've been in this declining trend for interest rates for over 40 years, and that trend has been broken since last year. So interest rates are on a new uptrend, so that's causing inflation. And I think that's the end of an old era. That's the end of a 40-year-old era. And when interest rates decline, stocks tend to go up, real estate prices tend to go up, bond prices go up. So we are facing some headwinds now, and I think investors need to get adjusted to this much more difficult environment. And that's why we had a bond crash last year. That's why stocks have been coming down. But stocks can be an inflation hedge as well, just like precious metals and commodities. So I expect stocks to do relatively well, especially for the short term. From a technical perspective, this is quite good because we had a real bottom of the markets in commodities in 2016, and then we had a retest in March 2020. Both of those years brought us spectacular gains of 70 to 85%. And then we had this longer downturn correction after the strong 2020. And this correction from a technical perspective is the move 2 in Elliott wave. And after move 2, when that's over, and it seems to be almost over, then you get a very strong phase 3 of the rally. Of the longer charting pattern, and that could be a much stronger move than we've seen in 2020, and also might take a bit longer, because you might remember the bull market after the March 22 COVID crash. It only took us 6-7 months, and then the rally was over. And I expect a much longer, stronger bull market, which might take several years. And I wouldn't be surprised when the GDX, as an example for the mining shares, the gold mining shares, will move up 50 to 100% within the next 12 to 18 months.
about what could be a potential trigger, because right now it's really difficult to see what could push the miners or even commodities on a broader spectrum higher.
You don't need a trigger. You don't need a trigger. When the sellers when the selling is done, you always have this cycle of redemptions and people getting frustrated and selling. When the selling is done, this market can turn on a dime. We've seen it January 16, 2016. It turned on a dime. There was no trigger, and we went up, and we went off for the races for months and months. After the COVID crash, we had 5 months of double-digit gains in our fund just because the market changed. And of course, that was because of all the stimulus by the governments. But you don't need a trigger. Once the sellers are exhausted, it will happen because valuations are so low. So once the sellers stop and the market turns, there will be so many people who are trying to buy near the bottom. And you know how illiquid most of our stocks in our industry are. So it takes 20-30% upwards move, just to get some supply to the market. So that's why you always have these double-digit return months at the first stage of this rally.
According to Willem, the current economic environment in the United States and the overall global economy is perfect for a stronger, longer precious metals bull market. During the interview with SOAR Financially, he cites debasement of currencies, inflation, tension between the West and East, and supply shortages as reasons for his bullish prediction on the metals. He also gives his opinions on the ongoing geopolitical shifts currently being orchestrated at the annual summit of what will now be known as the BRICS Plus Alliance. The BRICS countries of Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa have taken steps to more than double their members after admitting 6 new members, according to recent reports. The new members, Argentina, Egypt, Ethiopia, Iran, Saudi Arabia, and the United Arab Emirates, have been invited to join the group in January 2024. Willem explains that the group might not announce a gold-backed currency soon, but this is still the beginning of permanent shifts in the world's economic and geopolitical leanings. Let's get back to the interview.
I just came out of a meeting downstairs with a very wealthy real estate investor who wanted to talk to us because he said, I feel that I need to be exposed to commodities now. And if I look if I listen at the mainstream news here in the Netherlands or in Europe, every day there's talk about commodities now and about the geopolitics, and we'll talk about the BRICS. So there's this tension now. There's this competition now on commodity markets, and the general public starts to get interested and starts to understand that you need to be positioned into lithium and uranium because those markets will do very well. And also copper and nickel, the battery metals are very important. And don't forget platinum. If we use the fuel cell for the hydrogen cars, you need platinum. So there's a perfect storm developing for the world of commodities. We have the debasement of currencies and we have the inflation. Then we have the tension between the West and the East on the commodity side. And of course, we have shortages. We do a lot of supply and demand studies within our fund for each and every metal. And especially after 25, you'll see a lot of stress in many metal markets because there will be production deficits. The world producers can't keep up with demand. The number one indicator I follow is the dollar index. And the dollar has been quite strong in recent months. And once the dollar has topped, I think you will see this turn in the market, especially for gold and silver. And if you look at the dollar index now, it's on the verge of topping. And I think especially when the market thinks the Fed might be done with raising interest rates because the economy is getting very hard hit with the high interest rates. So we're on the brink of a world recession. China is slowing down very strongly. Europe is starting to get into depression. Here in the Netherlands, we have, a recession, not a depression. Here in the Netherlands, we have a new recession. So central bankers will someday stop with raising interest rates. And I think that might be the trigger you are looking for.
There's been talked about gold-backed currencies, things like that. Do you expect anything?
Yeah. there was a bit too much hype around the gold-backed BRICS currency. I helped a bit by starting that hype, tweeting about it, because the Russians were stating we'll introduce a gold-backed BRICS currency. It now turns out that there's a lot of work that needs to be done. Don't forget that the BRICS, these are 5 independent countries, and they all have their own agenda. So Russia might like to do something else than China, but they have one common interest, and their common interest is that they're fed up with the Western system. They're fed up with the Western double standards. They're fed up with the Western hypocrisy. So they are trying to, well, they are actually inviting all these countries who didn't join the Western sanctions against Russia. There are 140 countries who didn't join the Western sanctions. These countries in Middle America, South America, the Middle East, Asia, Africa, they don't support the Western sanctions, not because they're friends of Putin, but because they are fed up with the double standards, because we didn't apply sanctions against the US when they invaded Iraq or Afghanistan. So you have this huge, well, combination, this huge group of companies who are not very friendly to the West, who would like to build their own system, who don't want to be a victim of the weaponization of the dollar. So they'll try to trade without using the dollar. So they might use the Chinese yuan, or maybe in a few years' time there will be a common BRICS currency. But the most important thing to get away from all of this is that there's competition, strong competition. There's competitive tension in the world now, and that's very good for the world of commodities, because I know for a fact that some of the investments we are in, for example, in Africa, in the battery metals, the CEOs of these companies are getting calls from the US State Department, and they are told by the US State Department, make sure this project isn't sold to China. And that shows you that the undeveloped projects, there's quite a bit of competitive tension between the East and the West, who will be able to develop that project into a mine, and that will be good for valuations going onwards.
There have been a lot of conjectures since the BRICS alliance announced it was admitting 6 new members. According to the alliance, the new countries will help it grow a stronger coalition of developing nations who can better put the interests of the global South on the world's agenda. In a declaration it adopted on the final day of the summit, the bloc said, "We appreciate the considerable interest shown by countries of the global South in membership of BRICS." It further stated that the 6 nations were selected after the 5 current member countries reached a consensus on the guiding principles, standards, criteria, and procedures of the BRICS expansion process. Many have criticized the selection as being too Arab-centric, but Danny Bradlow, a University of Pretoria professor, says it's hard to find commonalities among the 6 countries. Bradlow, however, noted that all 6 are significant states in their respective regions. Russian President Vladimir Putin also talked about de-dollarization, describing the process as an irreversible trend that is quickly gaining momentum among BRICS members. Putin said, "A balanced, irreversible process of de-dollarization of our economic ties is gaining steam, with efforts undertaken to develop efficient mechanisms of mutual settlements, as well as monetary and financing control. As a result, the share of the dollar in export and import transactions within BRICS is declining, as it only equaled 28.7% last year." What do you think will happen to the US dollar when the new members, especially big oil exporters like Saudi Arabia and Iran, join the BRICS alliance in January and also stop accepting the dollar for trades? Do you think this threatens the dominance of the United States on the global stage and gives more power to China and Russia? Share your thoughts with us in the comments section below. Also, ensure you like this video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on post notifications for more videos. Thanks for watching.